Today we're going to take a little bit of a different approach to this panel. We want this to be a very sort of talk show format, two-way conversation as we talk about how can the customer become an active participant in the energy landscape. I'm going to do a short intro to the panelists, but what I would tell you is the common theme across this group is a real passion for the customer and treating the people that are utilizing energy resources as exactly that, customers, not ratepayers. And we're going to try and get this panel to talk a little bit about innovative ways that they have seen customers engaged. So with that, I'm going to start by introducing the panelists. So Matt O'Keefe is with us from Opower. His organization is focused on transforming the way utilities deal with their customers. So I think many of you who are in Hawaii know Opower. One of the other things that we wanted to share with you is something a little personal about each of the panelists. For Matt, he has a real commitment to carbon management, and although he travels a lot for work, whenever he has the opportunity, he saves the taxi ride and walks. And this commitment was really demonstrated, we thought, as he walked 1 hour in Edmonton, Canada, in the middle of the winter to his meeting to save a little bit of carbon when it was 20 degrees Fahrenheit outside.
I just got the feeling back in my ears a couple weeks ago. It was nice.
And next we have Kimberly Williams. She leads a global team of scientists who are focused on making a carbon-neutral liquid fuel. Kimberly, I wanted to have her join the panel today to really bring the perspective of technology and innovation and how that can be a part of the energy future for Hawaii. As with any science, sometimes you stumble upon different applications for your solution. Kimberly's is pretty interesting. Turns out she just filed a patent that her solar tree, which is supposed to be used to make liquid fuel for transportation, can also be used to make vodka. No joke. So speak to her later about your vodka supply. Third, we have Ray Starling, who works with Hawaii Energy. He's really focused on, as you all know, the first fuel, energy efficiency. And Ray is someone that we'll look to give us perspectives on how some of these customer innovations and technologies can apply in Hawaii specifically. So please bring your questions for Ray along those lines. Ray's personal commitment here is that he is truly a live lab prosumer. I think you should test him. He has PV, he has EV, and he claims he can tell you how many kilowatt hours he used to drive to and from work every day. Lastly, we have Debbie Kimberly. She leads customer activity for the 8th largest publicly owned utility in the United States with about 435,000 customers. Debbie's commitment to customers requires her to be a Bikram yoga enthusiast so she can remain flexible. So please welcome the panelists here. They're going to give you, to start off, just a couple minutes on their initial answer to the question of how can you actively engage the customers. We're going to start with Matt.
Thanks so much for having me here today. And I'm excited to talk about how the customer can become a more active participant in the energy landscape. I think I'll both start and end this small introduction to the work that Opower does and our philosophy on this with the idea that we have learned after working with 95 utilities in 55 million customers' homes across the globe that we can never underestimate the interest of customers in engaging in their energy use. We should also never overestimate the attention that they'll pay to this issue. We have found that time and time again, no matter where you go, Americans spend about 9 or 10 minutes a year thinking about their energy consumption in their homes. That's a very small amount. And particularly in this era of shifting landscapes for the energy industry, in which customers are increasingly expecting their utilities and energy service providers to provide the same services as other industries, like banking, like telecom, that they now are expecting more outbound communications, more personalized information, and most importantly, that the information is available for them when they need it. So given the fact that Americans are spending so little time throughout their year, less than a minute a month thinking about their residential energy consumption, we need to think about taking advantage of those minutes. What are those 9 or 10 minutes made up in that year? And it is our belief at OPower that it's taking advantage of these times right here, which are replicated here on this wheel that you see behind you, that's when we should talk to people about their opportunities to engage in energy efficiency, engage in demand response. Think about becoming a part of the grid by putting solar on your roof. And it is at these times during the cycle of the year, of the month, and of the day with customers that we can dig in deep and we can start to get a sticky relationship with customers. Let's talk about some of these opportunities here. One might be a moment when people are most open to making a change in their home, into the physical space that they live in. That's when someone moves in. When someone moves in, people are going to want information and opportunities to engage deeply in their energy usage at that time. But even at that time, if someone does in fact move in, make that change, add rooftop solar, or otherwise make changes to the energy efficiency of the home, we should also expect that is not a one-time moment, that there's continued information, that there's scorecards and information and outbound channels that show up in people's email boxes or mailboxes to let them know how they're doing, if they're staying up to the benchmarks or goals that they had set for themselves. Another one might be someone who has never thought about doing an investment in their home, someone who just lives their life, can more or less afford their bill, but that hasn't had to spend that time thinking about their energy use because there's other things that are more important, raising their families, getting to work, getting everything done they need to in their life. Those folks are only going to think about their energy usage in times of crisis and in times when things get out of whack. We think of this as the period at which you have unusual usage. And this is a type of a communication that deepens the relationship between an energy provider and their customers, because similar to when you receive a text message from Verizon or AT&T letting you know that you are well on your way towards using most of your data, they'll let you know before you get there. Similarly, we're seeing more clients across the country rolling out the idea of an unusual usage alert. Before your usage actually gets to the point where you're way above what you typically would be, where you're going way above what you typically would spend, you'll let folks know midway through the month something is out of whack, something is different than it should otherwise be. And taking advantage of this type of moment both reaffirms that people want this information, it gives them an opportunity to think about what they could change, to maybe get that in-home audit or change behaviors or think about this opportunity to step back and make that appointment with that solar provider. But it is saying you gotta take advantage of those moments. So overall, as we talk today, the experience OPower has learned over time is that, once again, we cannot underestimate how much people are interested in this type of information, this type of engagement with their energy, but let's not overestimate how much attention and time they're willing to put into it. And if you ask them, people will participate, but it's got to be at the right time.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Williams. I'm a co-founder of SOFI. We're a consortium of scientists from all over the world. So we've got South Korea, India, Israel, Germany, France, UK, and in the United States, we've got the Department of Energy, and we certainly have MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Berkeley, you name it. Solar fuels is our discipline. And Obama mentioned solar fuels in his State of the Union address. It's very real. Many people refer to it as artificial photosynthesis. So we're trying to do what a plant does. We make a fuel from sunlight, water, and air. The current buzzword is carbon utilization. How do you take carbon out of the air and recycle it to make a renewable fuel? So what we're doing with this is we're spinning off this research into little catalyst prototypes. The future and the way we see the customer involved in this is to imagine. We need people to know that this is the next generation. It's beyond advanced battery chemistry, it's the next generation. And therefore, we also believe very strongly in the customer as the child, the next generation. I don't know if you guys remember, when I was a kid, I got on a yellow school bus and went down to the General Electric storefront, and there was a woman, and she was standing in an apron, and she was demonstrating a microwave. And we all went back to class, and we learned about microwave technology. And then when it came into our homes, it was something we were very comfortable with. So the other thing I want to tell you is that Sophie was founded in Telluride, Colorado, a very similar environment to Hawaii. The locals take a great deal of pride in the outdoors, renewable, sustainable, innovation. All those words apply to these wonderful remote communities of ours that have beautiful landscapes and well-educated people. When Sophie was formed, the Telluride people said, we'd like to make this a message to the world. We'd like to get it out there. And it wasn't within 3 months that we had the entire globe involved. Scientists from all over the world. So I see Hawaii in a very similar, very attractive place to begin advanced technologies, and I think there are a lot of landowners here who would love to implement these advanced technologies. So we're approaching the customer from the pathway of, will you be an experimenter? Can you imagine? Will you consider these advanced technologies?
Great, thank you. Ray, please give us your overview.
Okay, thank you. I'm Ray Starling, and I'm the program director for Hawaii Energy, which is the state's energy conservation and efficiency program. It's paid for by the ratepayers who pay or who take electricity from Hawaiian Electric. The question here is, how can the customer become an active participant in the energy landscape? And I think there's been a change, and we need to be talking about the clean energy landscape because it's different. Before it was clean, we got our electricity from one provider and we paid our bills and that was it. But in the clean energy landscape, we've got a different set of problems that we have to deal with. And so I've come up with 3 things that I think we need to do. Number 1, and I'd be remiss if I didn't have this at number 1, is always start with energy efficiency. Efficiency is Hawaii's premier electric grid resource. It acts like a power plant, but it's far cleaner, more cost-effective, and more flexible than either fossil or renewable generation. If we start with efficiency, then everything else on the grid gets smaller, easier, and less costly. And efficiency reductions yield equivalent firm generator reductions. When energy efficiency measures are employed, those saved watts or kilowatts or megawatts are gone forever. You might add new kilowatts, but those that we save through efficiency are gone forever. You can wipe them off the chart. And over the last decade, the new efficient lighting technology has seen a 10-to-1 drop in lighting efficiency, going from a 100-watt incandescent bulb now to about a 10-watt LED bulb for the same amount of light. If that kind of drop occurs in the other technologies out there, which have not been added as long as the lighting technology, you could see Oahu's 1,700 megawatt fossil generation, theoretically at least, reduced to, say, 200 megawatts, just from efficiency. So efficiency first is what we need to be thinking about. But even with such a great deal with efficiency, it's still very hard to motivate people to pay attention to energy efficiency matters. We've learned that it takes a lot of hand-holding to get things done, but we do have some great help. We have key allies that help us to engage our customers on efficiency. Honeywell, subcontractor to us, O-Power, subcontractor, Blue Planet, University of Hawaii, all have done business with us in terms of reaching out to specific groups that they can connect with better than we can and helping us to engage on efficiency. Now, after we take all of the efficiency measures that we can, step number 2 would be, and I'm departing from what we do at Hawaii Energy, and I'll say that the rest of this is more of a personal statement from me as opposed to something representative of our boss, the PUC. This is, well, let's take a shot at it. I believe that if you really want to get to the end state that we're all looking for, we need to view customers as grid partners. Treat customers like they're full partners in the clean energy effort. And the truth is, we could not do clean energy on our grid without customers' active participation. And like it or not, customers have choices now that demand our collective attention. Because if we fail to meet these customer needs, the customers who can may leave the grid in sufficient numbers to really hurt Hawaii. And that would be a needless, self-inflicted disaster, in my opinion. Rather than let this happen, let's give the customers a good reason to stay, give them a piece of the action, educate them as to how they can participate profitably in the clean energy grid if they want to. Let customers take power or produce power on the grid at prices that can be changed in real time to encourage whatever the desired grid behavior is that we need. Some customers just want clean, affordable power and that they can rely on, and they'll gladly stay on the grid if we get them what they want, clean, affordable, and reliable power. But other customers may want to become active grid partners and manage their systems to respond to the grid's needs while reducing their energy costs. Give customers whatever it is they want and make them willing partners in solving our clean energy grid challenges. And how do we do this? Number 3, final, let's provide real-time price signals. Provide a smart meter infrastructure which is available and being used in other places, but make it possible here to allow both the buying and the selling at variable rates that actually reflect a positive or negative impact on the grid, depending on what the grid needs, reflected in the price at that particular time. Now, we may not have real-time capability for some time, but we could have near real-time or time-of-use rates. Deliver the real-time utility price signals that incentivize the customers to use the grid in the ways that we need for them to in order to support the grid. Do these 3 things, and customers will not only have the tools, but they'll also be motivated to become active and valuable participants in making Hawaii's clean energy grid a success. More importantly, an engaged customer partner will not likely feel the need to leave the grid, but always start with efficiency. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Ray.
So my name is Debbie Kimberly, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Energy Solutions at Austin Energy. This is probably, I think, the 4th or 5th visit that I've had to Hawaii, and I thank you all for your incredible hospitality. I am not a native Texan. I am actually a 3rd-generation Arizonan, and I've spent over the last 30 years working in public power. So from my perspective, public power is all about putting the customer first. When you work for public power, your customers are your owners, and you pay a dividend to those owners in the form of lower prices. I started my career with Salt River Project many, many years ago, and a couple of years ago I did something completely unexpected. People thought I was crazy. I was recruited for a position at Austin Energy, and my friends said, "What are you doing moving to the Republic of Texas?" And I said, "I'm not moving to Texas, I'm moving to Austin." And the reason why I took that crazy leap at a point in time where I was closing in on retirement was because I wanted to do more to help what is a very engaged customer base in Austin do more. Now, after yesterday's discussion, I gave Holly kind of the nervous look and said, I hope I'm not walking into the jaws of a bit of a disaster. You had some very engaged panels yesterday morning. Well, Austin Energy just went through a modified approach to updating its generation resource plan. So back in 2007, Austin Energy had a goal of getting to 35% renewables by the year 2020. And they thought that that was definitely a high bar. Well, guess what? Austin Energy was on a path to get to that goal a full 4 years ahead of schedule. So what do? You set the bar yet higher, and you engage with customers and stakeholders in determining where that bar should be set. So last December, our City Council, which is our governing board, set the bar yet higher at 55% renewables by the year 2025. Now, some in the audience might think that's pretty anemic, but when you're serving 435,000 customers that go the gamut from a low-income customer that uses 500 kilowatt hours, this is the middle of Texas, okay, so it's pretty much a desert climate, 500 kilowatt hours a month, to a Samsung, which is a 120 megawatt customer that requires high-quality energy 365 days a year, 24 hours a day without any voltage sags, and a small sag on that system can cause them to lose millions of dollars in product, and every customer in between. You've got to balance the approach that you're taking. We also, and I'm going to talk later today about our energy efficiency and demand response programs, set a goal of getting to 900 megawatts of energy and efficiency and demand response by the year 2025, and 950 megawatts of solar by the year 2025. So how do you get there? So it looks like, with kudos to Dutch for the ruining of my Star Wars experiences on a going forward basis with all those Yoda quotes, it looks like Matt and I did the Vulcan mind meld here, because when we saw each other's slides on Monday, they looked remarkably similar. So how do you get there? You leverage those customer moments of truth at every opportunity that you have. From the moment when a customer calls into your call center, and I'm not going to say ratepayer, as Holly said, I am not going to say a meter, an account. They are customers, and you need to keep in mind, just like your telecommunications providers treat you all, they are customers. When they call into the call center, you establish a relationship with that customer. You find out about that customer's needs. You ask them if there are other services that you can provide that customer. When they receive their bill, which, by the way, generally is after 30 days or so, after they've consumed the energy, you engage with the customer. You make it easy for them to do business with you. You, as Ray just said, you market energy efficiency first and foremost, because the cheapest and easiest way to serve any customer, whether the large industrial customer or the small residential customer, is to have them use less energy. Now, in the case of Austin, we don't need to own any generation. We basically buy everything off of ERCOT at nodal prices. And I live in, yes, the Republic of Texas, which is a giant oil and gas state. But my job is about using less of those fuels and using the first fuel, energy efficiency. How do you engage the customer? You get them to participate in programs that you offer. And it's been proven that the more programs that those customers engage in, the more satisfied they are. Matt's nodding his head. So he knows the benefits of cross-promoting and marketing. And by the way, having worked 3 decades in this business, I will be the first to admit that utilities are not the best at marketing. So learn how to do it. Learn from others in the business, and not other utilities, by the way, but the Nordstroms, the Verizons, the Coca-Colas, the consumer products marketers of the world, how to do marketing. And take those moments of truth, the trouble calls, the high bill complaints, and learn how to make, I know it sounds trite, but learn how to make lemonade out of lemons. Because if you can tell a customer with some reasonable degree of certainty when their power is going to be restored, you will begin to establish a trusting relationship. So I'll close with that to allow time for those lively questions that Holly's promised us. And thank you again for inviting us here.
Great, thank you very much to Debbie and to all of the panelists for providing their perspectives. So I'm glad to see some questions are starting to come in. Please continue to feed those up so that they don't have to go to my questions. But to start off, I have a question for the full panel. But Ray, you were flagged as someone who should definitely answer this. Regarding grid defection, with the rapidly dropping costs of battery storage, are we at the tipping point, and why should customers stay on the grid when costs will only rise?
Well, I think we probably are at the tipping point, but we need to keep as many people connected to the grid as we can. I think having battery power available is helpful, and again, as I described earlier, can be used if the utility or the grid is able to take or give power. It would be an opportunity to see batteries come into play to help stabilize the grid, as opposed to enabling people to leave the grid.
Great. Debbie, I might ask you to jump in on this as well. What are the benefits both for customers and for the utility, which at the end of the day still serves quite a number of customers? What are the reasons why people shouldn't just cut ties?
Well, I can tell you, when you're looking at the type of diverse customers that say, my current utility serves, or others, there's something to be said for having the ability to ensure that you've got reliable service any time of the day. I'll give you an example. And so you had asked in advance for some anecdotes. We serve in Austin a large hospital. It's Dell Children's Hospital. It's truly remarkable. It's LEED certified, green building. They have their own energy center. They use waste heat, combined heat and power to provide hot water for that hospital. I mean, it's just a fabulous example of sustainability. They would essentially have the ability to disconnect. But here's the anecdote. Last fall, there was a lightning storm, and I think one of the engineers, I work with a lot of engineers. I am not an engineer, just for the record. There were lightning strikes that hit their energy center and the substation that also provides service to Dell Children's Hospital at the exact same time. They were completely disconnected from the grid. Now, fortunately, we had the ability through the devices that we had installed to restore service, but for 7 agonizingly long minutes, that hospital had no power. So imagine you're in surgery, performing surgery on a child. I think it's certainly an alternative that we can look to in the future, but I'm not sure we're there yet. And I'm not willing to gamble my customers' businesses on saying, I will give you complete ability to disconnect from the grid. I'm all about, as I said, putting customers first. I think there is not a one-size-fits-all solution to this, and I look to engage customers in providing the right solutions to where we get prospectively.
Great, thank you very much. The next question is a bit of a shift in gears, and I'm going to take a bit of moderator privilege to span this out. So Kimberly, this is a question for you, and it's sort of in the innovation space, and I think, Matt, I might ask you to comment as well on the broader questions. But the question is specific around what are some examples of solar fuels, and this is a bit of a business development activity for you. How can Maui landowners get involved? How small a piece of land is able to participate? So you can see Kimberly afterwards for specifics on this. But I guess what I'd like to pose the question in is around innovation. What are some examples of innovation that customers can utilize today or in the relatively near future? And how can people get involved? How can people be proactive? So maybe you can talk about that, Kimberly, specific to Sophie, and then Matt, you can take that more broadly.
Could you go back to my slide so I could show you a very practical application today of solar fuels, and I think something very appropriate for Hawaii, is a a factory in Dresden, Germany. It was built by Audi, and the product is called Blue Crude, and it is truly a solar fuel. It's made from sunlight, water, and air. Could you go back to the original?
Yeah, the original slide, if possible.
So a friend of the CEO at Audi said, you know, this will cost millions of dollars, but let's do this. And once we make that fuel, let's feed it into the German fuel supply, and let's also make an app so that people can actually figure out where it's located or how to buy it. So it's pictured in my slide down in the left-hand corner. That is the Audi Blue Crude plant. It was built in a partnership, and it involved the EU Commission, and it involved private funds, and it involved Audi. It's built with parts from Climeworks out of Switzerland, an electrolyzer out of Singapore, a fuel cell out of Hong Kong. These are global opportunities to pull together projects, and they're like demonstration projects, and they require local participation, support, everything else. And it's imaginable that you could pull your car up and take some fuel from this facility if it were built in Hawaii.
Yeah, I might add to that when you look at our company, the way that we operate, it is in the service of our third-party clients, third-party provider clients like Hawaii Energy and utilities to help provide deeper sets of information that are more personalized and more uniquely suited and directed towards you as an individual consumer, whether or not you're a renter in a high-rise condominium complex or a single-family homeowner. And I think that you could right now go visit the website of Hawaii Energy and dive in and really better understand what it is that your energy usage looks like and what type of programs are best suited for you. And there's a whole other level of innovation that will be coming down the line as well for companies like us to help deepen that personalization. But the point here is that O-Power plays a role with our clients of helping to provide information that is not only interesting but actionable, and it's the folks we work with, like Hawaii Energy, that are providing the on-the-ground innovations that will help reduce energy consumption and help folks take advantage of their usage.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the questions continuing to flow in. Please keep them coming. I'm going to combine two questions that came up, which are of a similar flavor, and anybody on the panel can answer these. But it's really about how do you get the utility to listen? So specifically, the questions are, how can the customer get HECO NextEra to listen and respond to the Maui customer? Similar point is there's been a lot said about customer choice. How do you make sure that you get that choice? So I guess this is a bit of a, how do people ensure that their utility is looking out for them? I'm going to call on you if you don't raise your hands.
I could say that I'm looking forward to contacting Eric Gleason at NextEra to tell him that it is possible for him to become a member of SOFI and to invest in the future advanced chemistry technologies and to let his customers know that he's committed to developing these kinds of technologies for the future.
Well, I think in the past there has been less ability to get messages to the utility, but I think that is changing. I think it's a good thing. I think the conference last year was sort of the beginning of real change, and I see that in the discussions that have taken place yesterday and today. So I think the utility is listening. They hear it. Their effort now is to try to execute on the things that they know already that they need to do. And that's something that hopefully will be helped along by this conference. I'm not sure what else can be done by the individual customer. It has to be done sort of on a larger basis of what will affect all the customers. So.
And Debbie, I'm not going to let you off the hook on this one as the utility exec on the panel. What are things that you think has really pushed Austin to make changes, customer-led activities that have really made your leadership team say, we're going to do something different? And Austin is a very progressive utility in its own right, but I'm sure you've gotten some pushes along the way.
We have, and I mean, you need to consider, again, for a dinosaur like myself, so to speak, because I've been doing this for a long time. You know, back in the old days, customers would write a letter to the utility. And then there was a department of folks, and they would craft a response to the letter, and that letter would go back out to the customer. And that was the form in which customers engaged. That's not quite how they do it now, and certainly not at Austin Energy, because we have a social media group, and so customers tweet, they email us, they write blogs about us. I live in Austin, we have 70 citizen commissions that serve as a means by which customers can engage on topics of interest. Before I can offer a program that spends more than, believe it or not, $58,000, it needs to be approved by the City Council, and before it goes to the City Council, it goes to the Electric Utility Commission and the Resource Management Commission, both of which have citizen volunteers that serve on those commissions. So if you can get the drift here, they communicate in person, they communicate in writing, they communicate via tweets and blogs, and they show up on your doorsteps, and they have rallies, and we host forums in which customers can provide structured input, and so on and so on. We survey our customers, and I'll talk a little bit later this afternoon about you need to listen to what your customers say, but really pay attention to what your customers do. Because sometimes customers won't do what they say they want you to do, if you understand what I'm saying. So customers may say, I want a flat price plan, you roll it out, and they say, no, I really want to pay lower prices during certain times of the day and higher prices when I'm not at home, not using energy. So it's an all of the above approach. And when you go out and you ask your customers for input, and I love the presentation yesterday by Jeannie, after you collect that input, put it back out there for customers to see what the conclusions were, and then act on it. For heaven's sakes, act on it.
Great, thank you. And I actually just passed up a follow-on question that I was going to ask anyway on this topic. For the group overall, and whether it's with other customers, perhaps of O-Power, or in the experience with Hawaii Energy or Austin Energy, have any of you conducted a process like the Empower one described yesterday? If not, what forms does active listening take for each of you? And I'd like to make a little build on that. Does big data, particularly from an O-Power perspective, play any role? So feel free, any of you, to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my former employer and Austin Energy is working on the data issue right now. Did this constantly. So if you stop and think about to the big data point, in this day and age, we know an awful lot about our customers. So when I was at Salt River Project and I was asked to head up the marketing department, and you have to understand, you might have figured this out, I'm kind of a recovering pointy-headed finance person, but I like to get outside my comfort zone. And they asked me to head up the marketing department, and I thought, look at this wealth of data that we have on our customers. And if you have this customer data and you can append to that census data and housing data and income levels, and be able to also layer on top of that, well, what are the consuming preferences of that customer? Then you can start to field those sorts of questions to your customers. So we used, frankly, we used volunteer samples of customers who participated in message boards. We conducted informed decision making where before we asked customers what they want, just as you saw yesterday, we gave them a little bit of a primer on what do these things that you can't even see mean? KWH, KW, demand, and the like. And I think when you do that and do, as I say, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and provide opportunities for your customers to engage, you're going to be able to develop more robust programs that meet your customers' needs and the utilities' needs, and ultimately result in more satisfied customers.
Yeah, there's a lot of data. We have 400 billion meter reads coming in per year through our company, and it's really, really difficult to determine what's most meaningful and valuable. And I think that for us, we've uncovered a lot of universal truths about the way that people operate throughout the country and throughout the world and what they expect. And what we're seeing over and over again is that folks want more data about themselves inputted into their profile. When we see customers that are unsatisfied with the amount of information out there about them, it's that they wish it were more fulsome, they wish it were more accurate and deeper, because people want to be talked to given the information that they believe their utility or their energy provider should know about them. So folks expect now that you know their size of their home, their heat type, you know the age of their home, you know how many people live in there, such that when we have communications or interactions with folks to the point at which it doesn't feel that specialized and is more of a mass market appeal, it increasingly does not resonate with folks overall. Long term, though, I am seeing that in every room we're in across the country, all of our clients get this more and more. Some are much better at it than others, but all of our clients are trying to deepen that relationship by demonstrating that they have the ability to personalize the communications, personalize the offerings, and talk to folks about what matters most to them.
Excellent, thank you. We've got more questions than time, but I'm going to try and give us a couple more. There are a few that are Hawaii-specific, and Ray, coming your direction, around rooftop PV. And actually, we have two questions which come at the question from an opposing point of view. One is, how do you motivate customers with rooftop PV to be more efficient when they are not seeing all their savings from HECO? And then the second question is, how do you balance the sense of urgency around putting up PV, given the expiring credits that are upcoming, versus energy efficiency? Can you really say that energy efficiency is first? So, you have one question saying people aren't motivated enough and that they are more motivated for PV. So can you give us some perspectives on how to engage customers on rooftop PV and how they should balance investment in PV versus energy efficiency?
Well, we rely on the vendors to actually help us with that, and of course the vendors are not really incentivized to sell less PV, so that becomes a problem. But there are several out there, and I think they're distinguished by this fact. They actually go in and actually do it the right way and help people to do the efficiency stuff first. And of course, we are constantly trying to engage the public about energy efficiency. And as I said earlier, it takes more hands-on than you would normally imagine. People are just too busy to pay the kind of attention that they should to efficiency. And as a result, we have to push harder to get into them with OPower home energy reports and those kinds of things. But we do use the big data that is out there now to target people who we think are out of the norm for their particular kind of facility, whether it be a home or a building. And so we go after the people that look like they have some energy reductions that they could make before they do anything else. But we frankly rely on help from our solar PV vendors to do it right, and they want to sustain it for the long haul. And as far as the timing, that's just an issue. Sometimes they've got to get on the list so they can get it done before the tax credits go away and that sort of thing. And it's just hard to compete with that.
Great. A couple more questions here. One I'm trying not to answer myself. And it's partly because I spoke with somebody who's addressing this issue. So this question is also to Ray. There's all this talk about efficiency and reducing use, but what about all the appliances that are plugged in to the wall for passive use? How do I address that? And I'll let you all think on this for a second, but I may just field this one to some degree. I think some of the work you're doing right here on Maui and with the Energy Accelerator, I believe there's a startup that's addressing exactly this question about plug power. I think ISIS is the name, if I'm not getting it right. So that's a good place to go. To the panel, any other comments on this or other things that can be done to address that passive use?
Yeah, I think that this is straight to the core of energy literacy and people understanding what does and does not continue to be part of the vampire load all day long. I think back to a lot of the focus groups we've done where we were looking to enter a new country. We were bringing our product to France, and we wanted to understand the basic level of education people had about energy consumption and what they could do and what they do to keep their energy use as low as possible. And the number one thing that folks had said that they do was they shut off lights when they leave a room. That makes sense. But the second thing people reported that they do is on a monthly basis, they take the refrigerator off the wall and they wipe down the coils on the back of the refrigerator. I had never even thought about that before as something to do, and this was reported in France. It's something to do monthly to keep your energy use lower. Now, whether or not that should be the second on someone's list is not something that I know, but I'll tell you that I had never even thought about that. And so I think that there's a lot of education to be done on that issue.
Great, thank you all very much. A couple of other questions. One, who does a really great job of engagement? And we would welcome examples from the energy sector, but also, if you think about customer engagement and putting that at the forefront, who do you think that utilities or other providers of energy services can model themselves after?
I'd like to take a shot at that one and again, recognize the efforts of SRP, Salt River Project, my prior employer. And here's what they do and here's how they do it, and it didn't happen overnight. Customer service is baked into the culture of that utility. And as I say, it didn't happen overnight. But I can tell you that every single meeting in that utility starts with a safety minute and ends with a customer service minute. I can tell you that customer service statistics and results and customer satisfaction are factored into every employee's pay. There's an incentive compensation plan at that company, and that is in fact, the largest driver of the incentive pay plan at that company. Their objective is to be the trusted energy partner of their customers and to make it easy and pleasant to do service with SRP. And again, they do that in multiple ways. They use data, they do surveys, they do results, they listen to their customers. If there is a dispute, the call center employee has the ability to provide an on-the-spot payment to customers, known as a service quality payment to customers. It's a nominal payment to try to resolve issues. They have made that job one for that utility. Did it happen overnight? Absolutely not. They've recruited folks for their call center through a speed dating approach. And it's worked very effectively. They're not looking for people that know about the energy business. They're looking for people that are people. So I think that's one of the reasons why they've won so many awards. And I look at trying to take some of that secret sauce that has made SRP so successful and apply it at Austin Energy.
Well, I have to tip my hat to Matt. His organization is doing work for us because they're very good at getting out and reaching into the customers' homes and helping us to touch those customers. It is a very expensive proposition because they do it basically by sending out mail. And when you send mail to tens of thousands of people, that alone is a big factor. So we're constantly looking for ways to leverage that and do it better and less expensively. Just another couple, Honeywell, again, I mentioned Honeywell earlier, is reaching out in our residential customer areas. They do a very good job. We rely on them very heavily. We also have the Blue Planet Foundation, which you've seen Jeff Michelina up here talking about what they do. And they are special because they have reached out into areas on some of the neighbor islands that we could have never gotten to, and have enabled us to touch base with those folks and actually get them involved in our program. So, and I had a whole list on the chart, and all of those are doing great things in their own niche areas to help us touch the right customers, the people that need it.
And I'll tip that hat right back. I think that for us, it's so unique to get to work with a partner that is understands their customer base to the level that Hawaii Energy does, and their incentives are well aligned for it, and their heart is in the complete right place in all these actions. And to recognize the incredible differences of their customer base, it might be one of the most dramatic differences you see across the country. And there are very, very few energy efficiency providers that are going that far to personalize and speak to their customers the way that they need to be. On the mainland, though, I think there are some other clients that are seen as leaders, and although I could list and put a long list in front of you, what I really think about is that they are all similar in that their customer base, their advocacy groups, their state governments, their folks that care show up and share what they care about and share what matters to them, and force themselves to be listened to. And so these are most regularly in places where there is a fairly open process, or in places where there are other opportunities for pressure. But it's not just benevolent leadership of a utility, it's the engagement of customers throughout the service territory to work through the processes around them to ensure that they are actually serving their needs.
Could I step 30,000 feet? We think of Netflix. Netflix is a master at gathering all user data. From that data, they create new products. Movie producers actually make films based on what you're buying. The algorithmic potential and the data analytics there is something that we look very closely at as we try to gather consumer information.
Great, thank you. We're going to do one last question, and then I'm going to ask each of the panelists for their final thoughts. So the last question actually goes back to the company and profits. So the question here is, how can expanded customer choice be good for the utility company itself? And how do you really balance the needs of shareholders and profitability? What can an investor expect out of this? Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, I got a quick answer to that. I think if you're looking at what has always been in the utility industry and going down that path, it's a dead end. It really is. So the utility has to regenerate itself, if you will, and take on all of these things that we're talking about, bring them together. That's a new business. That's a new business. And if they're really smart, they can grab the market for a segment that they've never had before. That's all the transportation. All the transportation, except airplanes, for now at least, can be run by electricity. And they could expand greatly their market and their profits and so forth if they just made that change and did it leading the charge instead of, being pulled along. And that's a real possibility that I see now with some of the things that are going on.
Yes, we're hearing a lot of change or die going on for utilities. Does anyone else want to comment on this? If not, what we can do is we can move on to final thoughts. Each of the panelists, I asked them to say what was the single most important change that has to occur to ensure customer engagement. I'm going to make Debbie go first because she did not follow my instructions. And she listed multiple things. That's the punishment.
Hey, it's on one slide, and they're all related. Did I tell you I like to color outside the lines? So it's a multi-part answer that is one response, and that is develop products and services that your customers value. Sometimes if you don't listen to your customers, you're going to develop products and services that have no market. So not unlike what Kimberly just said and the Netflix example, Make sure that they are products and services that your customers value. I said this a moment ago, listen to what your customers say, but not unlike Opower that has done an awful amount of research with tons of data, pay attention to what they actually do. And then most importantly, for those of us who've worked in the utility business for years and years, communicate in terms that your customers understand via the media that they use. So that's not writing letters, that's not putting necessarily an ad in the newspaper. Don't talk about kilowatt hours and kilowatts. Talk about bills in terms of dollars and cents, and look at the diversity of your customers, the ages, the ethnicity of your customers, and communicate to them in ways that are customer friendly. So they're all kind of related.
Thank you. Ray.
Okay. It's no surprise now, I said the number one thing that you needed to do was start with efficiency, but the number one, and we've already got efficiency, it's not where it needs to be, we're still continuing to improve, but the number one change that I think would make a big difference in customer engagement is install the smart meter infrastructure, get it connected up, give real-time pricing signals to the customer, let them know what it's costing them and what they can do to lower their costs, and they will react. The rest will take care of itself. And the efficiency program may be out of business because if people are doing what they need to do to save because they've got price signals, then they won't, they'll do the efficiency on their own. We won't have to be holding their hands.
So your advice is drive you out of a job.
Eventually.
Eventually.
It'll be a while.
Okay, Kimberly.
So we're in the energy storage space. So I answered this question somewhat according to that. Transformation requires integrators. You see the Tesla home battery on this slide. You also see solar grid storage. SunEdison acquired Solar Grid, and Tesla, or Solar City, is entering this market sort of independently. I think these groups are needed to integrate, to begin to connect the utilities with the consumers. It forces the issue.
Excellent. And Matt.
Great. Lastly, I think it's always important for us to remember that we are the 0.5% of people who will ever attend an energy conference. And when we think about these issues, that there might even be at the most successful utilities or the most successful energy efficiency administrators, 20% of people ever participating in a program. And so when we think about that next 80%, or maybe that other 99.5% who will never get to sit in a room like this, let's think about ensuring that the way that we get folks to be engaged, to deepen that engagement and lengthen the time they are thinking about their energy use, is that when we speak to them in personal terms about their use, taking advantage of big data, and ensuring that they're all moments that do matter and moments that are, in fact, aligned with what matters most to that person.
Excellent. Thank you very much. First, just really want to thank the conference for having us here and for including this very important topic. And I want to thank the panelists all for lending their time and perspectives. Hopefully this will lead to some great customer engagement as you guys embark on what is unavoidably an exciting and interesting journey for Hawaii going forward. So thank you.